So as space paired, we use a sets of ribbon microphones. We use two R22, and the reason why I use them, it's right out of the bat. Space paired again works in a way that kind of like splits the kit in half. So we have a very detailed representation of the left side and a very detailed representation of the right side. The downside with these techniques, if not properly used, is that will cause the kit to be sounding a little bit unnatural, because again, we're having only one microphone that aims towards the left and another one that aims toward the right. So the first thing I did was carefully measuring the same distance from the kit between these two microphones. So these two microphones are equidistant left to right and equidistant from the center of the kit. This shall give me already a little bit more phase coherence of when the signal will reach out both of the ribbons of these two microphones. So in another word, once the drummer is gonna play the snare drum, both of this microphone, though one is placed closer to the snare drum and the other one a little bit on the opposite side, will perceive the exact same sound coming from left and right at the same time. So this shall help me already. Then I've chosen two ribbon microphones because ribbons have a very detailed low mid-range texture, so they're a little darker. So by default they're going to be equalizing already the sound for me, removing a lot of the harshness from the cymbal and just focusing really on the true sound of the kit. Another thing I did with these two microphones, if you remember the signal flow chart I showed you previously, is that I passed them through a Chandler preamplifier, which is by default a very colorful pre that adds again a lot of mid-range and a lot of coloration to the overall sound of the drum kit. And then after that I actually put in the insert Neve 33609, which would give me approximately 4 dB of gain reduction. And the reason why I use this compressor is because I wanted to bring up out of these two overheads a little bit more of the texture of the early reflections of the room. So without any further ado, I'm gonna let you hear what these two microphones are doing. I'm gonna be muting the XY, and I will play first the overall kit, and then I will solo up only the left and right side of this R22 ribbon microphones. Do you feel the explosiveness that these two microphones have? I mean, the explosiveness is given from the actually 33609 adding a little bit more of compression every time that the snare drum would sound, which is exactly how I calibrated. I wanted the compressor to react only when the snare drum would hit, in order to bring up the overall sound of the drums and tame it down a little bit, the snare drum. So I'm gonna compare right now the two different microphone techniques. What I want you to focus is again on low end, so which microphone adds a little bit more subharmonic on the lower part of the spectrum, which again, we'd use two different microphones, two different pre's, and by default the ribbon microphone should sound darker than the XY. But what I want also you to focus on is the stereo spread of the kit. So I'm gonna let you hear first the XY, and then I will unmute them and let you hear the ribbon microphones. So we're gonna start with XY, KM184. Ribbon microphone, stereo pair. Again, it's hugely noticeable the explosiveness that this two ribbon microphones are adding to the kit. I'm actually starting to like them a lot because they will introduce a lot of that spaciousness and bombasticness that I'm seeking from a drum kit. The downside again of a stereo pair is that sometimes, if not used properly, this could cause a little bit of phase problems with the overall balance of the kit, and as well it could cause the kit to be split too much in half. That's why sometimes, as I'm going to show you in a little bit, you would add a mono microphone that will kind of compensate for the kind of like gap that there is in between the two microphones. So again, before we move to that specific issue of having not a lot of center image, I'm gonna let you hear again the difference between these two microphones, and I'm gonna be soloing and unsoloing throughout the song. So focus here on my tracks. So right now, what you should see is the solo button to start switching. So when the solo is on the XY, of course, we're listening to the XY, the KM184. When the solo is on the overhead left and right, over here, we're moving nonetheless on the ribbon microphones. So we're gonna start with XY and then moving throughout the performance on the ribbons. So I hope you heard the difference. I'm gonna let you hear it again. Focus on the low end of the overall kit and focus on the stereo spread of the overall kit. Again, we're gonna start with XY, and then throughout the performance, I'm gonna be A and B, XY versus stereo pair. So again, with one techniques, of course, with one specific pair of microphones, the KM184, we're bringing up a little bit more the brightness of the overall kit, especially for the cymbals. We're hearing a little bit more the hi-hat, and there is an hyper accentuation on the overall sound of the cymbals. With the Royer instead, we focus a little bit more on the body of the drum kit. We still hear a lot of the cymbals being recorded, but they're greatly tamed down by the type of frequency response that this microphone has. Let's focus on adding a little bit of the proximity microphones to the equation. So I'm gonna start by adding the kick drum so that you could hear the difference between only stereo pair ribbon without and then with the kick. So right now we have very punchy overheads, and again we got a little bit more definition out of the kick drum. So again, these overheads are used to glue up together the overall kit, and with proximity microphone we can bring a little bit more upfront the attack of each single microphones, or actually each single part of the kit. What I'll do right now is let you hear and do the exact same example with the snare drum. Stereo pair, in my opinion, is a greatest microphone techniques because it helps a lot in this situation, the snare drum, to sound way broader. I mean, with this two pair of microphones, what we're doing is again focusing a little bit more on the sound of the kit element per se, rather than focusing on the brightness of the cymbals. And so adding this microphones, it feels that it kind of like takes the snare drum, which has a very good tone and a very good punch, and add a lot of spread across my left and right speaker. I'm gonna let you hear only the snare drum and solo, and then I will unsolo the overheads. I'm gonna compare with the XY, so without XY, and then I will just put them in. Night and day. What I'll do is to add kick and snare to let you hear the difference to the overall sound of the overhead. So what I'll do right now is to let you hear first the overheads, and then I will unsolo kick, snare, and hats, or actually unmute kick, snare, and hats. What I did was also lowering a little bit the amount of hi-hat I have, because right now these two microphones are doing a great job in bringing the hi-hat sound up. I'm gonna move forward and get to the part where we have our tom fill to truly hear what these microphones are doing to our overall sound of toms.